Hello, 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 and welcome to the first of 4 webinars developed and curated on providing successful business insight for business owners. Today, the webinar series begins with starting and establishing a successful business. We're joined by Shahiwa Jarrett Jellin. She's the founder of the Florida Association of Black Chambers of Commerce and Broward's Black Chamber. And you've seen Shahiwa and the Florida Black Chambers champion on the steps of the Florida Capitol. In fact, if you aren't following them on Facebook, do so at this time. Let's drop the link in the chat and follow them on Facebook. Also joining us is Althea Harris with the Small Business Administration. She's been championing for small businesses for over 2 decades. She now serves as the Assistant Director, District Director for Marketing and Outreach for Area 1. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for having us.
I'll go ahead and begin with you. As you know, today we're discussing starting and establishing a successful business. Can you identify some reasons for starting a business and really how to identify your readiness for becoming a small business owner and an entrepreneur?
I would start, but first of all, it's wonderful to be here. Happy National Black Business Month to everyone. This is our month. Well, some of the reasons that I've found, and just kind of doing some surveys and talking to small business owners as to why they start their businesses, for a lot of African Americans, it's because they felt undervalued at their job. They felt that they weren't getting paid, commensurate with their experience or what they brought. And they just felt like they had more to offer, like I'm in this job. Is this all I can really do? I feel like I can do more. And I have a brilliant business idea, or I have skills already that I've acquired, and I want to be able to go out on my own. And so, you kind of hear some folks will say, I wasn't so happy with where I was. I didn't feel I was valued. I'm going to strike out on my own. Or I really just had this great idea. I can't get it out of my head. I've done some research, and so I'm going to jump out there and hang my own shingle or my own hat out there and start a business. In trying to determine if you're ready, right? Having a great idea and wanting to go out there is very different from being ready to actually start and launch a business. And for me, I believe that starts with research. You have to do the research, and if you don't understand the market you're going into with regard to the service or product you're going to offer, you don't really research the location that you're going to be and see if there are other people, close by already offering that service, you're going to set yourself up for failure. So you really have to put your research in and build in some of those very basic principles that you hear over and over again, but they're tried and true, because I've seen how when you don't do them on the back end, they can sometimes come back to hurt you when you don't have a business plan where you have thought out every step. You've thought out all of your potential streams of income, right? You've really thought out who your target audience is for your service or product. When you don't do that, you find yourself a year or two down the road having some problems. So I'll stop there. Lots more to say, but I'll stop there for now.
And Althea, I can see the light bulbs just going off in your head. Please feel free to go ahead and jump in. I had questions for you, but I can see you want to get in on that one. So go ahead.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate what Shahiwa offered to answer the question about, what are some reasons to start a business? And she really laid out some of the tensions, right, that exist, and the underlying itches that cause a person to actually start a business, right? But the only reason to start a business is because you really believe that you have a viable idea that will offer benefits to consumers and and presumably society, right? You have a solution to a problem that you believe people are willing to pay for. That's how you start a business. Now, it does a whole lot of other things. Some of those tensions that Shahid mentioned. Ideally, you're going to make some money and earn a living at it. In America, you hope to grow rich because of it. But
Yeah.
fundamentally, at the core is a drive and a desire to solve a problem, to be a benefit. And that's a great reason to start a business.
And Althea, I did want to expound on that question with you. What are some fundamental things that business owners need to have in place? I believe we spoke a little bit about this in our pre-production meeting, but
Mhm.
tell us about the importance of infrastructure, for lack of a better way to describe it.
Mhm.
Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness. Infrastructure is so critical. Um, and that is, you need to have some things in place. And if I may I start with you, right? What do you have in place, right? Business ownership is challenging. I am married to an entrepreneur, and even though I have worked with small businesses and businesses for my entire 30-year career, I'm telling you, it is wholly different when you're living it, right? So it's very challenging. And one of the things I'm so impressed about my husband is he actually gets up and goes to work every day and wants to do it. He's a self-starter. You have to, in a business, if you don't do it, it's probably not going to get done, particularly in the beginning, right? So you have to do you have the right infrastructure? Are you a self-starter? Are you hardworking? Can you endure to the end, right? Are you resourceful? How about responsible and decisive? Is that part of your own infrastructure? Are you healthy enough to start a business and sustain it? Do you have a support system in place? And so when I think about the infrastructure, you got to start with the entrepreneur and what infrastructure they have in place, and then that element I talked about, support system, that extends beyond, right, just the individual. So I'm my husband's support system, right? In the beginning, when he was starting his law practice, I thought, he had his own built-in cheerleader. You gotta have a support system that says, you can do it. No, don't quit. Because how many days out of 365 do you want to quit? Because it's very challenging. And but also in that, you want to have the right infrastructure in terms of, are you set up properly as far as taxation? Do you have a bookkeeper, or are you also the bookkeeper? And if you are the bookkeeper, what's your system? Because it can't be little pieces of paper. You're going to lose those, right? But does it mean you have to have, QuickBooks? Maybe not. But you might need to have one book where your records, something reliable, your go-to. So there's a whole lot baked into having a support system and infrastructure. And we can talk more about that, but I don't want to, leave Shahiwa out. She's actually done it.
Yeah, no, I agree with so much of what you said, and it really does start with the individual, because ultimately you're going to be driving, that business forward. It's going to fall on your shoulders, especially in the beginning. So it really is about you. Are you that self starter, and are you focused enough to understand what it is you want to do? Because at a certain point, you have to understand what you're doing and what you're not going to do, and be very focused and intentional about how you go about it. But just to follow up on some of the infrastructure outside of the individual business owner, once again, kind of looking at it from the 2020 hindsight, and some of the business owners I talk to, not having that legal structure set up properly can be very harmful. And I know people say it's expensive, but trust me, it's more expensive on the back end when you're trying to get out of a sticky situation. Not signing, and you're signing documents that you don't fully understand, etc. It gets you in trouble. So having someone who is, kind of like your legal go-to, I think is important, especially in the beginning, because you want to start off right. Um, then having a CPA, like Althea mentioned. So, you start off on the right foot, having your books in order, even if it's just a consultation, so you know what you should be doing, even if you can't afford a CPA or a bookkeeper up front is really important. And then I just go back to that business plan, because even if you know, don't share it with anyone, although obviously you should be if you're going to try to get funding, it helps you fully understand what it is you're trying to do when you put pen to paper. Helps you clarify a lot. And then lastly, I'll mention that strategic marketing plan, which I have members of my chamber who've been in business. They've been doing it for 10, 15 years. And then you don't have that strategic marketing plan, and you kind of hit a really rough place, because you don't know what to do, because you haven't planned for it, you haven't thought it out. So don't skip over those beginning steps, because that will really be your guide. And it will change as you go, but it will really be your guide, with regard to what you should be doing, when you get caught up in the day-to-day running a business.
And to
And
you
some of the
viewers,
other,
no,
I
no,
was just
no.
going to mention
Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
the infrastructure, have a business bank account, right? Don't put that stuff in your household account. You have to keep everything separate. So because, and if you want your business to have a credit card, I'm not recommending it, but whatever. If you have it, make sure you never use it for your personal purchases. That is a big fat no-no. You want to make sure that as far as your infrastructure goes, you are set up correctly, like Shahiwa alluded to. Are you an LLC, a sole proprietor, S corp, C corp?
C corp. Mm-hmm.
There's a difference, big difference, and you want to make sure that you're choosing the right structure, priorities, how the government is going to tax you, and what your liabilities are, exposure to liability. So, there's a lot to do. You want to have your licenses. If you better check before you start a business, do you need a license from the state? And if so, what are the requirements there? You want to file with the state. You have to let the government know you're here so that we can tax you, right? So you want to have your your employer identification number. It's like the social security number for a business. Lots of little things to do, but I know that can be a little overwhelming. So I do want to point out that there are resources, free resources that can take you step by step. Shahiwa, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
There you go.
Right. One bite at a time. You don't have to gulp the whole thing down. So there are resources that I know will pop up in the chat that can help you with all of these individual steps, so that you can take it step by step and that you don't get overwhelmed.
Very, very important. And that took us to our next topic. And also, those of you who are viewing, if you have a question that you would like for these two experts to address for you, please drop it in the chat, and I'll make sure that we let them know what your question was. But even just following up on what you said, we saw during the pandemic, the government was allocating funding for business owners, and there were laws and requirements that business owners needed to have proof of. And what I know is that many businesses were not even able to take advantage of what we would like to say free money.
Yeah.
They weren't able to meet the minimum requirements. So what are some things that business owners can maybe think about when they're becoming frustrated with ensuring that they have that business plan in place, or even bookkeeping? What are some things that you can recommend to them to aid them in their frustration of ensuring that they are handling their business the way it needs to be handled?
Yeah, I would say, because obviously I saw this firsthand. I had all kinds of wonderful programming plans, and then the pandemic hit. What's so funny is we had a session scheduled with Althea and the SBA, an 8A session to discuss their 8A program, and I flipped that into a PPP informational session so that our
Wow.
members would be able to, get that information really kind of real time as it was coming out. But what I found that, you know, um, the members who weren't ready, unfortunately, weren't doing some of the basics. We had a lot of members that were ready. They were filing their taxes on time and filing it on time, but also being honest with what you were making, right? That you were actually making some dollars, not trying to show that you weren't making anything so that, you end up, having a loss or something like that, but filing it and being honest about it. Unfortunately, some of the people who missed out weren't filing their taxes and hadn't done so for a couple years. So while all this money was coming out, they're trying to play catch up and get all these back taxes filed. Another thing that we routinely preached at the chamber was, once again, QuickBooks Online is fairly inexpensive, and there is other accounting software. It was like $24 or so. You have to understand, if you're going to start a business, there are going to be some investments that you really shouldn't skate, right? And you're also going to have to understand that certain things can be delegated, and it can be a technology-based delegation so that it is easy for you, so that you have less frustration and really can focus on all of the other things that are going to consume you, staffing and growth and servicing your clients or providing that product. So one, obviously filing those taxes, but then using a financial accounting system to help you. And it's become, like I said, really inexpensive. I believe, like I said, $24 a month for a basic online subscription to QuickBooks. Because now you're not sitting there trying to reconcile, go through your bank statements to see how much you spent, what came in, etc. So you have your books in line. The PPP required financials. And when the CARES Act dollars came down to the cities, we had cities here who offered some $5,000 grants, some $10,000 grants. Our county offered $10,000 grants, which we were, pushing and helping our members get ready for. But they also required financial statements, which, if you had QuickBooks, it's literally a push of the button. So you're missing out on, grants, obviously loans, lines of credit, but you really missed out on that PPP if you weren't ready at the drop of the dime to, with your financial statements. And quite frankly, it only frustrated my members. There were members that, they were frustrated because they were missing out on everything because they couldn't meet the minimum requirements. So once again, if you're gonna, start a business, certain things you really shouldn't skimp on. So I can't impress upon you enough how important it is to have those financials in place. Not going hard on Black businesses. All businesses, small businesses have this issue, but we have to make sure we get our house together administratively.
Althea?
100%. 100%. Listen, you cannot avoid the tax man. You can't. It's just a huge juggernaut. So you might as well just play along, right? And this is to piggyback on what you said, Shahiwa. You could not get PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program
Mm-hmm.
monies, which essentially was free as long as you used it. Wait a minute. And PPP was a gift that kept on giving. Okay.
Oh, it really
Because if
did.
you could get it, then you were eligible for the ERTC, the Employee Retention Tax Credit, where the money you paid on taxes for your employees, you got that back. So it was a gift that kept on giving, but you had to have W-2 employees. And there's so many businesses out there who, one, pay people under the table. Two, they pay people as 1099 consultants when that's not what they are. And I get it. I don't even like to pay my taxes. I get it. And then what you talked about, Shahiwa, are the people who file their taxes and I'll say this, they're doing it with their accountants at their suggestion and approval, but you're the owner of your business. Your accountant tells you file your taxes this way so that you don't pay as much in taxes is fine if you don't want to grow and you don't ever want to take on expansion capital. That's fine, I guess. But if you want to grow, you have to show that there's growth potential, and running every conceivable expense through your business to mitigate your taxes shows that you're just barely breaking even. There's no room for expansion capital. So there's a lot of nuances that happen there, particularly with PPP. Fundamentally, you hadn't filed your taxes, the deadline for that. It's April 15th for you personally, March 15th for businesses. And guess when the pandemic struck? Around March 15th of 2020. And then your personals, if you hadn't put that through, that was April. But, businesses who regularly file for an extension in 2020, because that's what you do, and you didn't have to file till October, so you didn't. Well, that made it problematic for you when it came around to needing to produce tax returns. So there's a reason to do things timely. And I mean, who would have thought there'd be a pandemic and all of that money that came out to help people? That was not predictable in any way, but it's predictable that you may want expansion capital one day. It's predictable that you may want to take on an investor. It's predictable that you may want to sell your business. You're going to need tax returns for all of that to show what your business is like. Heck, if you get into legal trouble, and I know Shahiwa can tell you, you might have to produce tax returns so they know how much money they can take from you.
Yeah.
When the court case goes bad, right? So there's a reason to have your taxes done properly and on time. And I would just go ahead.
And I'll just add this. Jessica talked about frustration, and dealing with that frustration of, not having, but I would say that, when you start a business as well, it's important to look for support systems. And our Black chambers are that support system. We have our Black chambers provide programming, where we're talking about tax tips. They're reminders about filing your taxes. Obviously, there are professionals in the chamber, CPAs that can help you file your taxes. And then there are also other sessions on, we had sessions, and I know several of the other chambers around the state had sessions around PPP and what is it? And then PPP compliance, right? The aftermath. So how do you get that amount forgiven? So chambers are a really great resource to help with that frustration. So you understand what is out there to help you. They have informational sessions that you can join in. So you're educated on what you're supposed to be doing, because quite frankly, as a solopreneur, it can be a lot, and you may not remember everything, and you may not keep up with everything. But when you have a group that is solely dedicated to helping Black businesses, survive and thrive, and then you have a place where you can get resources and help and ask questions, so that you'll be guided and set up and connected to the right people. So you're always doing what you're supposed to be doing. I just wanted to put that in there, because sometimes people overlook it, and I get that silly question, and it's silly, people. Why should I be a member of a chamber? Do you see, look at, and I tell people, look at what your local chamber is doing. Look at their Facebook, attend some events, so you understand the benefits that come with that. Because there is an absolute benefit in being connected to a chamber for you personally and for your business.
100%.
That was going to be one of my questions. Take a breath. It was on resources. So Althea, tell us about the SBA, because I look at you as well, like I look at Shahiwa with the chamber and the importance of joining it. Speak to the importance and aid that the Small Business Administration has been offering to businesses.
Thanks so much for asking that, because we are celebrating 70 years of helping small businesses. SBA was created in July of 1953. And ever since then, we've been helping small businesses. We are the only agency whose sole mission it is to help small businesses. Not saying that other agencies don't, but that's not their primary mission, though it is ours. And so we have, since 1953, built an organization that has all kinds of help, from helping you access capital through our loan guarantee program and our micro lending program. We help you access the federal marketplace, which is a multi-billion-dollar annual marketplace, right? I mean, when I say multi, I don't mean like 3, 4, or 5. I mean over $800 billion every year is spent to help government perform. And we want small businesses to be a part of that. We help entrepreneurs with high quality counseling, training, and mentoring through our resource partners. We help you with innovation and funding innovation through our Office of Investment and Innovation. So there is so much that we offer to small businesses and, frankly, their communities. And so whatever you need, if it's about business ownership, we either have it or we can connect you to it. And our website is dense with information, sba.gov. On there, we have the Ascent learning platform, so you can, at your own pace, go through modules to help you learn those things you don't know about business ownership. There's so much to know. There's so much to know. SCORE is our resource partner, and Shahiwa, I'm sure I told you this already because I like to brag about it, but our SCORE chapter in Broward is the #1 chapter in America. There are hundreds of SCORE chapters across the country, but the one that's in Broward was chosen to be the #1 because they are killing it on helping businesses start and grow. Same with the Small Business Development Center at Florida International University here in Miami-Dade County, the #1 SBDC in the nation. We also, in South Florida, friends, have the #1 bank for export finance here in South Florida, Amerant Bank. So there's a lot happening, but here's the thing, which I think we've really talked about, and I'll just hit that nail one more time, if I may. It's a lot. Business ownership is a lot. You wear all the hats in the business until you hire someone. And then when you hire someone, you're the HR manager too. So, this is why it's so critical to know where your resources are and tap into them. And so when Shahiwa talks about joining a chamber, listen, I know it costs money to join a chamber. And so I would say to you, look around. Try to get the most bang for your buck when you join. What value does the chamber add that you need? There used to be a time before Obamacare that you could go to chambers, and chambers would gather together to be a health collective. So entrepreneurs, solopreneurs could have health insurance. That was a huge problem for entrepreneurs until Obamacare came along. So there is a lot of value in reaching out and connect for real, engaging with others. Those I loved what you said about delegating to technology. Shahiwa, that was fantastic. I'm totally ripping that off. And, but to connect to the resource that's going to help you take that next leap forward is so critical, because you do it alone, but you don't have to do it alone, right? When you have your own business. I mean, it is all on you, but you don't have to carry the weight by yourself.
Yeah.
Let's talk about another resource, certification. There are a number of different agencies that you can become certified through. Can you all speak to the importance of becoming certified?
Yeah, I can do that. I'll take that because I not only speak as someone who started the chamber, but actually runs a business that's heavily involved in government contracting. And actually, one of the reasons I started the my particular chamber in Broward, and then even the Florida Association of Black Chambers, was for us to be able to expand those opportunities for Black business owners to contract with the government, city, county, and state. And so I'd say this, there are several programs, certification programs. I tell my members to start with the free ones. Start with the free ones. The certification program in our county, we have two programs, a SBE program, Small Business Enterprise Program, and a county business enterprise program with our county government. And it's free. But it takes you through that process that you're going to go through if you get certified with another agency. And what does getting certified mean? There are different parameters for each program, but in essence, it's creating a sheltered market for either small business owners or minority business owners or women-owned minority business owners. So instead of competing with the big boys for contracts under a certain level or certain number, that you get to compete with other small business owners, which makes it likely that a small business owner will win. Instead of the big boys always getting the dollars, right? We get to support some of our small businesses, which is good for our local economies because small businesses are the drivers of our economic drivers of our economies. So the benefit of going through that process, filling out the application, once again, sharing your financials, because, so financials come up again, you have to evidence that you are in fact a small business. They're not giving away this sheltered market to billionaires. And then, some other things about your business, have an office, etc. Some of them will do a site visit to ensure, you're there, you are who you say you are, and you become certified with regard to that product or service in that program. I've seen the benefits because, quite frankly, if you are a small business, by definition, you can't compete with some of these national and international juggernauts. And coming away with, say, for instance, our small business sheltered market is $250,000. Coming away with a $250,000 contract for a small business owner is wonderful. It's great. And for our program, you only have to be in business for a year or more in order to be in the pool. So it's a really great way, and government contracting in general, and you typically have to get certified. We have it with our county government as well as our school board here locally and a couple of our cities. It's a great way to stabilize your business because these contracts are for 3 to 5 years, and then they typically are renewable. And some people hold, these contracts for up to 10, 15, 20 years. So imagine if you're able to have a contract that you don't have to worry about this income for 3 to 5 years at the very least. All the other things you can now project and plan for. Staffing, which is another issue we'll get to. But staffing, you're able to project your revenues. You're able to say, hey, well, now I can buy that technology that was so expensive, but now I can spread it across those 3 years because now I have this income that's coming in. So getting certified, I believe, is absolutely worth it. Not only because you're now in that particular pool for that agency, if you meet the requirements, so you are now eligible for those opportunities, but other larger companies who have to partner with smaller businesses for some opportunities do look to these lists. And we've been called to partner in opportunities and RFPs, to grow the company. So, there are multiple benefits to being involved in a certification program. And lastly, I'll say, even for other opportunities that come around once in a while, like the NFL when they had their Super Bowl in Miami and other opportunities, I advocated for them to use our Broward County certification. I said, why are you going to force us to utilize and have to pay for get another certification when we go through a vetting process here? So it allows your chambers, once again, to advocate for a very innovative approach to utilizing these certifications so you have that much more opportunity at your fingertips.
Wonderful, Shahiwa. Viewers, just wanted to remind you, take the opportunity to drop chats, questions, concerns, things that you would like for these two experts here to address for you here personally. I know that I would ask them a question if I had one. And I mean, Shahiwa and Althea are not readily available business women. So make sure that you drop the questions down. But I did want to talk about, because as Black business owners, there is always this accustomed to hearing things that are on the downside about being a minority business owners.
Mhm.
But can you lay out the unique offerings that have been set aside for Black, minority, women owned businesses? I know that there are many different programs and opportunities that are out there that are specifically tailored to Black owned businesses. And in addition, there are a lot of grants that are
Mhm.
specifically geared towards those communities. Can you speak to some of the unique offerings that can be afforded?
Sure. I don't know if you want to go first, Althea. I have something to say, but I don't want to
Okay,
host.
well, okay, so on the federal level, not so much, right? At least not through SBA. But I did want to, in the piggyback on what you said, Shahiwa, about certifications. And certifications exist because governments value the contributions of small businesses owned by diverse people. Okay. Government is supposed to be for the people, right? All the people. And so certifications uh, are an opportunity for you to gain leverage, as Shahiwa mentioned, in any given government marketplace and in and corporate marketplaces as well, right? In terms of the partnering. So, but for me, when I think about certifications, I really hope that you listening understand certification to be an opportunity for you, not coming at it as some sort of a right or an entitlement, because you offer value. And I want you to pursue certification so that you get to offer that value to government, because we need it. We need it. We need it. We need it. Small businesses are far more agile than big clunky corporations.
Mhm.
We know that small businesses are right in our communities, and every government understands it's about local. And so when you as an entrepreneur grow your business through doing business with your local, municipal, state, and federal government, you're strengthening the community you live in by creating jobs, innovation, commerce. So I love the idea of certification, helping to grow those synergies in communities and among businesses, big and small, and also all of the opportunity that it represents, and the security matters that Shahiwa talked about, where you're able to protect your revenues, you can, project your growth, and you can plan for growth when you have those steady contracts. So I'll leave it over to you now.
Well, to answer your and to go into more about the opportunities, Jessica, with regard to outside of certifications and the wonderful opportunity that creates. But believe me, although you get certified, you don't always get utilized, and so that's where the advocacy of our Black chambers come in. I do a lot of that too. But on the grant side, I will say, it's unfortunate that obviously a lot of people kind of woke up and realized that there were all these disparities and inequities after the brutal murder of George Floyd was, witnessed by so many. And it kind of shook a lot of people in the corporate America, and obviously the average American citizen. And so I started to see this really great uptick in grants and other opportunities, because people were now looking not just at the obvious, the police brutality, the over policing, um, and things of that nature, but then looking in other areas and saying, where are some of these other inequities, and the recruitment, the lack of promotion, um, and then obviously the lack of funding flowing to our Black businesses and our Black communities. The truth is, our Black organizations, our Black-led organizations and Black communities have been under-resourced for many, many years. And so I saw this uptick. And to answer your question, I'll name a couple of things that I saw. So even during the pandemic, I'm frantically searching for opportunities. And Famous Amos had an opportunity, $50,000 grant. So you saw corporations come out with different grants where they actually awarded money. I tell my members, don't just think that we're putting this out there, you're not going to get any money. We had members that, restaurants in particular, that won some dollars. Hennessy, had a grant that we had, from places we didn't think, but Hennessy had a grant and they gave away some grants and dollars. Obviously, you had to have your paperwork in order, but just having it ready, having your financials ready to be able to apply. So you saw a lot of corporations promise, and then some actually delivered on some of the grants, because once again, they saw the lack of investment and looked internally and saw that they weren't doing anything with our communities. So you had corporate investment. You also saw a lot of funds develop during this time. I said, look at the lack of diversity in the spend in venture capitalism, the lack of investment funds available for Black startups. And so it was really wonderful to see these Black venture capitalist firms pop up, such as Fearless Fund. I believe actually starting tomorrow, they're having their conference in Atlanta. The Serena Fund. I know I've seen Harlem Capital, Diverse City Fund. So there are a number of funds that popped up that said, we want to fill the gap because of this lack of investment, and this, in essence, ignoring Black startups and Black businesses. And so there was really this explosion in opportunity there. Lastly, I'll say our federal government came out with a few executive orders. Executive order, I believe it was 13895. I remember that one. There was another one that specifically said, because of the lack of investment in Black communities, there is a need for us to concentrate in creating equity in our communities, and not only in education, but with Black businesses. And so all of the departments were charged, and department heads were charged with looking at their programs and how they could actually work more with Black businesses. We need to follow up and make sure that's being done. But I've seen an increased number of grants available on grants.gov, which I go to, EDA grants, specifically for Black businesses, for women-owned businesses. Recently there was a grant to create a tech hub that literally just closed on Tuesday, to create tech hubs in underserved communities, etc. So there really is this explosion. So I tell people, this is the time. Get on grants.gov and look. If your product or your company has a certain affinity, or maybe is a good match for a certain industry, start looking at those corporations in those industries. For us, it's kind of like banking, et cetera, make really good partners for chambers. We've done that and we've been able to get funds. So this is a time to be very aggressive. So thank you for the question, Jessica.
Yes, yes, yes. I know that another great aggregator of grant opportunities is Hello Alice. It's a national website, and then there are also grants that are available right now for small businesses, for Amazon Foundation, Nextdoor Foundation has one, the NAACP. You mentioned Freedom Fund. The conference is right now in Atlanta, but Hello Alice really pulls all of these together as well as grants.gov. And they have this programs page where you can go down and they sort them by the date that the grant application is due, which is very helpful. But then we also have another pool of money that I would like for you, Althea, to touch on, because when businesses immediately think about funding, they think about the SBA. Can you speak to us about funding options that are available for small businesses? And if you are a startup, how new can you be? You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like you have to have a certain amount of experience in the industries. Please add that as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to make it easier, but it's still challenging. If you are starting a business, um, you are not likely to find, I'm going to even say never, you're not going to find someone who will finance your entire enterprise for you, because everyone wants you to have skin in the game, right? Something at risk to make you get up every day and go after this enterprise rather than abandon it and just get another job, right? So, but SBA is in the marketplace, and we provide funding help along a spectrum. So, on the low end of the spectrum, we support micro lenders. We help fund them, and they in turn make low dollar loan amounts. And that low, is in comparison to the other end of the spectrum with SBA loans that are at $5 million. And then if you get involved in SBA's venture capital program, of course, then it can go beyond $5 million. But on the lower end, anything usually under $50,000 is where you would find micro lending dollars, even as low as $500. Not everybody needs a whole lot of money to start a business. So we provide funding along a spectrum, and I went and I pulled our loan numbers just before we were coming on, and I'm happy to say that we go by fiscal years. Our fiscal year starts in October. So since October of 2020, SBA had done over, starting from October 2020, we've done over 5 billion businesses in South Florida.
Say that one more
So,
time. It went out. Say it one more time. You did how much in South
I'm
Florida?
sorry. In South Florida, which is everything south of Orlando, in our district is everything south of Orlando, starting in October of 2020 up until today, SBA has guaranteed over almost $5.8 billion in loans to small businesses, over 8,000 small businesses in that time period. And, it looks like things are as we are on pace to do 1.8 billion just this year. And just for context, our best year ever was 2017, $1.4 billion. So there is capital out there. There's debate about whether, capital is contracting or not, what has going to happen with interest rates, blah, blah, blah. But right now, SBA's lenders are making loans guaranteed by us, and that is part of our role in this whole enterprise. But even though I just told you that, those dollar amounts, right, in terms of SBA lending, on our advocacy page, SBA's advocacy page, there's a stat out there that government guaranteed loans for starting businesses represents less than 3% of all funding to small businesses. What's the highest? At 75% of startups are funded by the business owner.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're saving.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to take a chance on you first. You know what I mean? And it, frankly, what you're willing to risk helps others determine what they should be risking, right? So, but we're in there, we're out there, making those loan guarantees so that you do not need to call to get an SBA guaranteed loan. You need the lender you want to do business with. If they want our guarantee, they know what they have to do to get it. You don't have to concern yourself with that.
Nice.
Thank you. And Shahiwa, did you have anything to add as it relates to lending?
Yes, I want to just add we have a couple partners, and I think that's once again the power of a chamber. And you see all the chambers listed on the side. Check and see if you have one in your local area, Black Chamber. But that's one of the basic tenets of Black chambers because we've always had issues with accessing capital for our businesses, even when the factors are kind of identical. And a white person walks in to get a loan and a Black person walks in to get a loan, even if we're similarly situated. Blacks have always been statistically less likely to get that loan or get the access to capital that they need to grow their business. And so we have always said, and if you look on the different pages of the chambers, that access to capital is a focus. So we create relationships with financial institutions and a variety of them. So, when people think of financial institutions or banks, they tend to think of the big names, and a lot of those big names had our people in the queue at number 75,000 during when the PPP was coming out. So yes, it's important to have relationships there, but then also sometimes people forget about those smaller banks that have a little bit more flexibility than the big banks to work with our small businesses, right? So think of those middle to small, more local banks. So, while we have worked with Truist, we have worked with, a Valley Bank or a Seacoast Bank, the smaller banks. And chambers understand the importance of creating relationships with those banks so their members have access to capital. I also mentioned, working with CDFIs, which were specifically created out of the need for Black people to have access to capital because the traditional banks were not allowing us to have any access. And so we do have CDFIs in various districts. I know we have one, a couple down here in South Florida that creates additional options for funding for our small businesses. We worked with a really great partner that got our members PPP in like no time. They got it in days. NDC Online has been around for a very long time. Although I think their office is out of Jacksonville, New York, and in Jacksonville for us, but they have reps that are around locally, and one of their reps is one of our board members. So we were able to get dollars from them very quickly and support. And they didn't just pop up during the pandemic. They've been around for decades working with minority women-owned businesses, so they know our needs. They know some of the shortcomings. They work with you to get in what you need so that you can get the access to funds that is necessary. And then you have other minority depository institutions, that also lend. So it's important once again to be connected, because that is one of our number one questions. I need funding. I need a grant. I just recently got a contract. I need to fill this PO. I need access to a line of credit. So that's a very fundamental kind of requirement that a chamber fills with connecting our community and our members to funding.
Thank you for that. I did want to get your feedback on accelerator programs and startup programs. Are there any that you can recommend, and are they beneficial?
I think they are, if done right, in these launchpad programs. I know we have partnered in the past with FIU, and their mission to market department is run by a gentleman who's a Morehouse grad, very dedicated to making sure our businesses are startup. So he's worked for the Department of Defense, Department of Energy, and works with commercializing patents, all kinds of really great things, complex things, but also they run a cohort that's very basic, and teaching people the basic principles of how to start a company, and really goes through that process. That one pager, I know back in the day, you used to have like pages and pages where your business plan. They literally work you through this one page plan. And then they work you into kind of like a process where you're kind of piloting your business, etc. So you kind of understand early up front whether your business would work or it's viable, rather than kind of pouring all this money into it and then launching it and finding out later. So it's a really great process that he's developed. We did a couple sessions with him, called a tech startup pilot. That was a 3-day program, but they run the program regularly, I think quarterly, out of FIU in their Mission to Market program. So I recommend them because I've actually worked with them. I know that they have one at FAU, in Boca, and a couple others around the state. We haven't had the chance to work with them yet, but I do recommend the one at FIU.
Okay, and our last question before we get our closing remarks is on scaling your business. I wanted to know if you can speak to whether or not it was for all businesses, but as chance would have it, we had a question. Gasoline the Sources says, what advice would you ladies give to businesses who can be scalable but are not placing themselves in the right path to succeed, or afraid to have those open conversations to leaders they come in contact with? Any advice on that? And also addressing just scaling. People think they're supposed to scale. Is that a misnomer? So either of you, please address those two concerns.
I don't know if Althea wants to go first on that. I can't. I can't. Go ahead if you want.
Well, oh, age that touches
Well, I think you're kind of
a
frozen,
broad
Althea. So
space
I'll kind of take it, and then you can hop in because you're
because
frozen. But I will say this, with regard to being in the right places and spaces to meet the right people. Once again, I believe it's connecting with chambers to prepare you, but then just being prepared in yourself, because chambers can connect you to decision makers. That's what we do all day, right? We have bid prep sessions. We run these programs so that when you are in these rooms, you're ready to go, right? You have your pitch deck, you understand your product very well, you know how to present. So once again, being involved in the chamber is very helpful. But outside of that, you know, you have to understand what you offer, and you have to understand whether your business is in a position to be scalable, or whether you really do have more of a boutique offering, and maybe that is your niche, and maybe that is where you find value, and where customers and clients find value in you. So I do agree with you, Jessica. Sometimes we have to think about our businesses very strategically to say, is this something that really can blow up, like Shark Tank blow up? Or are we more of a smaller boutique company that goes after a very target audience, that is a steady stream of income, that may go to a certain point but caps, but that's good enough because you're in that niche market. And for some people, they can stay quote unquote small and boutique and still make $5 million and be very well off and happy, and it's manageable, right? And then there are others who maybe offer a product where, yeah, if you're offering a product as opposed to a service, then scaling may be something you need to look into, because yeah, if you sell more product, then you're able to reach more people and have a nicer profit margin. So I really think you got to kind of step back and understand your business, your model, and really your goal in life, what you're trying to do with regard to scaling your company. But for getting into the right spaces, speaking to the right people, I think that's a part of why you join a chamber, for them to make those connections to you. I say it to my members all the time. We had a session with a very big hospital district here in our county, and the CEO was there, the chief procurement officer was there, the CFO was there. If you're an individual business owner picking up the phone, you're not talking to the CEO, you're not talking to the CFO, you're definitely not getting the chief procurement officer. But in that room, everyone got to talk to the CEO. People got problems resolved like on the spot with the chief procurement officer. So there is value in joining a chamber, and getting those immediate connections. But once again, I fall back on the preparation part. We have mentorship programs. So we've partnered with a mentor provider um, that are full of executives, about 100 or so executives that worked in corporate America, did logistics, marketing, the HR. And so you have to pitch what your business is and your need. But because of that chamber connection, you can get accepted into that program where you literally have that one-on-one mentor preparing you to be in those groups, to be ready to take advantage of those opportunities. So you won't be afraid because you know that you have everything in line because you've spoken to people that were in those boardrooms on a corporate level. So you know that you're prepared. And I think once you're prepared to be in that moment. And we've had members that have participated in the program that have doubled their revenue. And I can go on and on with some of the other results, but those types of mentorship programs work, when done right and when you take advantage of them.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm not sure where all the time went. Can you believe it's been an hour? I can't. I don't know where that went. But before we leave, any closing remarks?
Go ahead, Althea.
Thank you so much for including me today. I've been typing in the chat. I do hope that's going somewhere and not into a black hole. That the audience is able to read those. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity because our priority at SBA, as you even mentioned, long before the executive orders talking about equity, I have the great pleasure of working in South Florida, a richly diverse and dynamic small business marketplace. And I'm delighted to be able to reach every segment of our district, and I'm not able to. But this has been a great opportunity to reach Black-owned businesses or folks who want to become business owners. We need them desperately to continue with the innovations and the job creation, for them to scale if that's what they want to do. Because remember, we started this conversation, what is a reason to start a business? And my response to that was to add benefit to the marketplace and our community. So thanks so much for the chance to do that. And I hope you all will call upon us at SBA to help you if we can.
Thank you. And Shahiwa?
Thank you, Althea. I would just end with these 2 points. One, if you're starting a business, for me, it's all in the research. Do your research, be prepared, make sure that it is something that's needed, where you're located in your market, and talk to people about it, see what they think, get that buy-in, and don't be afraid to build that team around you that's going to support you. You're going to need that support. A lot of people think running a company is sexy, but it's hard work all the time. So I would just remind you that just make sure you do that research and that preparation. Don't skip the steps. And there are enough lists online in this, kind of Google, nation we live in where you can Google anything. But make sure you don't skip any of the steps, because if you do, it will come back to bite you. And then my second thing I want to say goes to the individual business owner. Make sure that you're caring for yourself, right? That you're preparing yourself to, have that. Don't forget about you. You're working hard, health insurance. Make sure you're saving for your retirement. Make sure you have your will. You have a transition plan. Although you're just starting your business, you need to have the end in mind. What do you want to do so that you can therefore prepare and plan in that way? Don't work so hard that you forget about yourself and setting yourself up for retirement, and to make sure that you're healthy and well taken care of.
Well, thank you all for joining us. We appreciate you viewers for sticking with us for an hour, whether you viewed on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. This webinar will remain live on Hip Rockstar's channel on YouTube. That's youtube.com, Hip Rockstar. We also would love to give a big thank you to FPNL and their initiative to power Florida's Black businesses. If you gain insight from this webinar, please do not hesitate to share it, favorite, let other businesses know about this webinar. Also coming up, this is the first in a 4-part series. We have detailing certification requirements, options, and resources. Another is going to be on marketing trends and strategies to help expand your customer base. And the last one will be on how to sustain a profitable business. Give me the money, right? Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you again in a few weeks with our next webinar. Thank you.
Bye.